What's good with y'all? For this ambidextrous drawing video, I'm gonna be drawing a bunch of Five Nights at Freddy's characters with both of my hands. I got inspired to do this one because I had already made a bunch of fall themed drawings. The first character that I started off with though was I started with drawing out Springtrap. And it's so funny because as I was saying before, I didn't really intend on doing Halloween characters, but I had already started with doing fall stuff. I went from pretty much drawing fall leaves to drawing full-blown horror characters, and that's just a crazy transition. The only thing about Springtrap though, from a design standpoint, I somewhat had a harder time with him because the shapes that make him, they're a lot more complex than, say, the other characters. Because he's kind of withered too, and it's a lot of different textures going on, it's just a little bit more complicated to fully draw out. I didn't want to fill up the whole page though. I only ended up drawing the top portion of his body, but I later jumped to drawing out Bonnie too. I found this picture though that I messed with and he was holding a guitar. I thought that it was a solid reference, but I made sure that I really used a lot of my blue this time around. Getting his shapes down was a bit interesting whenever it came to shaping his face. It definitely was from a more interesting angle. But as I was saying, I like this picture a lot because he wasn't just standing, he was actually holding his guitar too. Getting that background context instead of just their face, it kind of adds a whole nother element to it. I thought that it stood out. I still did blend the red and blue though, don't get me wrong. It wasn't just like solid blue and only blue. Something else I keep in mind as these are coming together though, is just the importance of the roundness of each character. I always try to get everything to look well-rounded. The next character I later jumped to was drawing out Chica. I felt like it had been a long time since I've did any of these characters, but it was a cool callback because this game had like low-key exploded a lot whenever I was in elementary school. The first one did at least. But kind of like my Conjuring drawing, I had to just focus up a little bit more because instead of me scribbling, I had to draw straight lines, especially on Chica's shirt. I had to lock in for a second, I had to put a little bit more focus there. But I always break these up into pieces. That way it doesn't get overwhelming, you know. I try to focus on certain portions of their bodies and just slowly bring everything together. It's almost like in a puzzle kind of way. But once I drew out the cupcake, I later went through and rounded out the rest of her arm. And a portion of her leg space too. It got a little bit tricky more towards the end though because her hand was sort of off of the page a little bit. But I made it work. Finally, I went through and I drew out Freddy's face. It wasn't too much space here, but I made it work. As I was going through scribbling in the details, I really made sure that I just showed the roundness of the lines. That way everything seemed a little bit more 3D and less just lifeless on the page. Once I finished drawing out Freddy's ear though, I jumped to drawing out his top hat. Later moving to his teeth, and I just slowly moved down the rest of his body. But as I was saying before, you know, I wanted there to be variety with the way that I drew these characters. I didn't want it to get too stale or repetitive. I did mess around with the perspective a little bit, but it ended up working out because everything came together. I later finished it off by drawing out what was left of his hand. Here's for the red lens, and now for the blue. Let me know what y'all think about this one down below, and if you're interested in seeing more, don't forget to like and follow, and I will see you on the next one.